Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I'm well. How are
Good.
you, Reverend?
Baruch Hashem, very well, thank you.
Good. I listened to an excellent and interesting podcast this morning. There's a site called Unpacking Israeli History, and it's Noam Weissman's the guy's. I don't know if you've seen him. He's an
I have not.
educator. He's
Sure.
terrific, and he and Haviv Retagor were discussing Rabin's assassination, background, foreground, everything. It was just, I, I just learned so much.
What was it called? What's it called again? Unpacking.
Israeli history.
Let's second here.
Morning, all.
Good morning, Liz.
Yellow. Unpacking Israeli history. 30 years after Rabin with Haviv
Yeah.
Retagor.
Yes.
Okay, now how do I listen guest transcript unpacked? Okay, no, this.
Liz, I was listening to this podcast, and Sam, if you're there, I don't even know. I don't know.
Yeah, which podcast?
The site is Unpacking Israeli History with Noam Weissman. By the way, not to be confused with Noam Dworman from the Comedy Cellar.
Yes.
And I absolutely adore him too. I really.
Yes, I know. He's very good.
Yeah.
No, I'm who?
Dworman, Dworman. His father owned the Comedy Cellar in Greenwich Village, and now he owns it, and it's a comedy club. But he's also very interested in Jewish history. So,
And he does a podcast, which is usually interesting.
Oh, Live from the Table, I think it's
Yes,
called.
Live from the Table.
Right.
How do I get this to be?
I listen on
Morning,
YouTube.
Estelle.
So I don't know.
Okay. So
Hi, Estelle.
top results.
Morning, everybody.
Channels. Unpack 9 shows. Unpacking Israeli history. Follow. There we go. Okay, now I am following. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. All righty then.
If you do listen, I'd like to know what you think. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I will give it a listen.
The Rambam is actually mentioned in it. So, okay.
Then I'm for sure listening to it.
Of course.
Right, so this is what we call Lifnei Iver. And we started this last time. So it begins with giving bad advice. Knowingly giving bad advice. So let's look at it again. He prohibited some of us from making others stumble. And that is if a person asks for advice about something and you fool him. What do they say in Hebrew for you fool him? Nefata. That actually, the word actually literally means to seduce him. But this would be, I guess, I mean, not that this would be somebody who has, let's say, a Ponzi scheme. This would be one of the things that he is transgressing, or let's say somebody funneling people into a Ponzi scheme. This prohibition comes to prevent deceiving him and making him stumble. Rather, you should set him straight about a matter that you think is actually good and straight. And this is the meaning of it stating, you should not place a stumbling block before the blind. The language of the Sifra in Halachic Midrash in Kedoshim is, to the one who is blind about a certain matter and who hence takes advice from you, do not give advice that is not proper. This negative commandment also includes one who helps another do a sin or enables it. So this is a second, I mean, they're considering it a branch of the same prohibition, but really it does seem like it's a separate thing. One is giving harmful advice. The other one is enabling somebody to do something that is wrong. So not long ago, a couple months ago, I did some research into this. I was specifically interested in, I narrowed it down to this question. If I have somebody over, I'm feeding somebody, and I know they're not going to let's say I'm serving bread, they're not going to wash their hands, they're not going to make a blessing, they're not going to say Birkat Hamazon. So am I allowed to do that? Because here it sounds like you're not allowed. The question is, what's called enabling? What is called enabling? I might think that I would not be allowed to do that. I would not be allowed to serve somebody food if I knew that they're not going to be making blessings or washing their hands. And especially Birkat Hamazon is biblical, but they're all, anyways, the rabbinic requirements. So am I allowed to do that? Now, there is another famous question that is also part of this, but I didn't specifically research that one, but it's definitely tied into the results, which is, can you invite somebody to your house who is going, let's say, who's going to on Shabbos or Yom Tov, and you know they're going to drive. So, like famously, Ramosha Feinstein says that you should not, because of Lifnei Iver, that you should not invite somebody over. It seems like from Ramosha, and this is what it seems like from Ramosha, at least how some people interpret it, that you should even if you know the person is coming, that you should tell them not to come. This is not absolutely clear because Rabbi First, I once asked this to Rabbi First, and he told me that if the person comes on their own, I do not have to say anything. And even if I know they're coming, but if it was completely on their own, I do not have to turn them away, and I can greet them, with joy, etc. There are people, I remember Rabbi Alter, at least people told me that Rabbi Alter told them. Rabbi Alter now lives in Lakewood. So I knew a family who were close to Rabbi Alter, and so the son and daughter-in-law became Orthodox, and the son's parents used to come every Friday night for Friday night dinner, and they were counseled to tell them not to come anymore because that arrangement is a violation of this, that you're enabling in this sense would mean that you are participating with them and creating a kind of context for them to transgress, and that would be forbidden. Now, again, even Rabbi First, who was a student, he was a Talmud of Ramosha Feinstein, and Yeah, so he told me I can't knowingly advertise to people who are are going, to come on Shabbos. But if, let's say I'm not advertising to them, let's say I'm advertising to people who can walk to an event that I'm having, so then I don't have to turn away other people who want to come if they heard about it. This is also the case with a bar mitzvah. Let's say somebody's having a bar mitzvah on Shabbos, and they have family members, and they know that those family members are going to drive on Shabbos to come to the bar mitzvah. So what are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? So all these kind of questions are part of this general subject. I specifically decided to narrow it down to the case of feeding somebody who's not going to make a bracha. So it seems like, again, I did this research a couple months ago, and I'm not the last word on these things. This was my own research, and but it seems like first of all, that most halachic authorities agree that in order to transgress the biblical prohibition of lifnei iver, of enabling, that it has to be that without you, they could not have done it. Without you, they could not have done it. So the case that's discussed in the Talmud is where a person, let's say you have a person who's a Nazir, and he wants wine, but there's no wine where he is. There is wine on the other side of a river. He has no way of getting to that wine. You happen to be on the other side of the river, and you reach across or somehow stretch the wine across to this other guy, and now he has the wine and he can drink it. As a Nazir, he's not allowed to drink wine. So in that case, you have biblically transgressed lifnei iver. It's called tre avre denara, two sides of a river. If let's say you're both on the same side of the river, and he wants a glass of wine, and you happen to have wine with you, and you hand him the wine, that is not the biblical transgression, because he could have gotten it on his own. You're not enabling him to do something that he couldn't have otherwise done. You are participating in what he's done, but since he could have done it on his own, it's not called lifnei iver. This is how it seems like most halachic authorities would say that. So, for instance, let's say, shifting this over to something within American law, so it's forbidden to aid and abet a criminal or criminal activity. Now, let's say a person comes to me and asks me if he could stay in my apartment in order to evade the police. He's done a crime, and now he wants to stay in my apartment in order to evade police. But he could have easily stayed in several other places that have nothing to do with me. So is that called aiding and abetting? Now, if I'm providing him with something that he could have gotten easily in many different ways, he just happens to ask me first. So is that called aiding and abetting? I'm not sure what it would be in American law. I have a feeling it is still called aiding and abetting, but maybe they do have this same kind of distinction. But according to the biblical, the understanding of the biblical transgression, that would not be considered aiding and abetting according to halacha. Since he could have gone easily to other places, it's not considered forbidden. So one practical example of this was when Tzippi was working at Starbucks. So she was a barista at Starbucks. The particular Starbucks that she worked at had, let's say, ham and cheese sandwiches. So let's say somebody who she knows is Jewish wants to buy a ham and cheese sandwich. And so she happens to be the person who's engaged on behalf of Starbucks with this sale. So can she hand this person the ham and cheese sandwich? Can she make the sale happen? So we asked Rabbi First this, and Rabbi First said that since this person could easily go to any one of the other people working there, and in order to get this sandwich, it is not considered the biblical transgression of lifnei iver. And he said in that case, the specific case we asked about, she's allowed to work there and she's allowed to do that, since that is the case. Now, just because you haven't violated the biblical transgression doesn't mean that there still isn't a rabbinic transgression. Now the question is, though, what is that transgression? Where does it come from? What is he now violating? So, or it may not. So it could be, according to some, what this person is violating by helping the person is it is called Messiah Lidei Avera. You're helping somebody do something wrong. This is different language, and it may not be exactly the same thing. Not putting a stumbling block before the blind, the second definition here is that you can't enable somebody to do something that's wrong or help somebody to do something that's wrong. There we said that biblically it has to be that if you didn't do it, this person couldn't do it. But it seems like from many commentaries that there's an assumption that there's still something wrong here, even if he could have done it with somebody else. The question is what? So some use this term Messiah Lidei Avera, which also means helping somebody do something wrong. What is the underlying infraction? It could be the underlying infraction is that we are all meant to look out for each other. Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh. We're all supposed to look out for each other. And by my enabling you to do something wrong, I'm not looking out for you. I'm doing the opposite. In other words, I'm not looking out for your welfare. I'm ultimately helping you do something that's not for your welfare. So let's say you assume that is the problem. So this is where some of the permits come to feed somebody, even if you know they're not going to make a blessing. So, for instance, let's say that my goal is that eventually this person would want to make a blessing and would want to wash their hands before and would want to bench. Let's say that's my goal. Am I allowed to take a long-term approach? So am I, in other words, am I allowed to say, if I maintain this warm relationship with this person, it's possible that they are at some point going to see me as a kind of model and decide at some point that they are now going to start making blessings beforehand and washing their hands and doing Birkat Hamazon afterwards. If that's possible, then it could be argued that I'm not violating the problem of not looking out for the other person, not the other person's welfare. I am interested in the other person's welfare. This is the best opportunity you have to get this person to that better place, which is to take a long approach, which means initially the person's not going to be doing the right thing, but eventually they're going to get to doing the right thing. So even though I'm I'm not biblically, this is important. I'm not biblically transgressing this because they could have done it on their own. Even let's say they came to my house and I'm serving them lunch. They could have gotten lunch somewhere else. This is how far this goes. When it says that he couldn't have gotten some other way, they mean it. They really couldn't have gotten it somewhere other way. If he could have gone somewhere else to get his food, then that's not the biblical scenario, according to many halachic authorities. So therefore, now I'm at a rabbinic place. In this rabbinic place, am I allowed to take the long view? And this is where you find people permitting it. Like, for instance, Rav Sternbach, who is he's considered a very influential halachic authority. He is presently, I think, still the head of what's called the Beit Din Tzedek of Jerusalem. And it's a very influential Beit Din, and he is a very influential halachic authority. So he says, for instance, if you have if it's possible that this person would eventually adopt the proper etiquette, when eating, halachic etiquette when eating, then you're allowed to do it because you're not violating the other issue, which is that you're not looking out for this person, because you are looking out for this person. It's just that you're taking a long approach. The thing is, if there's no chance that this person is going to change, in other words, you could make it up in your mind that some accident or something happens and changes their mind, but it's not a likely scenario. So then you wouldn't be able to make use of this permit. This permit is only available because I am looking out for this person's welfare. I'm just taking a long approach. But if there is no long approach, then I wouldn't be able to do it. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach has a different approach. He says that you are allowed to take a big picture look at this. So, for instance, when he's eating at my place, he's eating kosher food. It's likely that if this person was eating somewhere else, he would not be eating kosher food. Now, if he eats not kosher food, and especially if it's biblically not kosher food, if this person's doing it, and he could be eating several different items that are not kosher, let's say, and then I measure that against not saying a blessing, not washing, or not benching, I'm allowed to say that he would very likely transgress many more transgressions if he wasn't with me. And therefore, even though even if this person's never going to change, but since the person is transgressing less, that's also a big picture outlook about caring for this person. I am caring about this person. I am looking out for their well-being, because at least when they're with me, they're transgressing less. This is for sure his permit about people driving on Shabbos. He wrote a letter to somebody. He told this person, I'm only answering this for you. I'm not answering this for anybody else. And then it became public, and now it's relied on as one of the permits for this, that you could, according to him, you could directly ask somebody to come to your house on Shabbos. Not like Ramosha. Ramosha Feinstein said you cannot do this. He's saying you can do it. Why? Because if they come to me, I can assume there's going to be a lot less desecration of Shabbos than if they were on their own. I don't have to know that for sure, because here the problem is, in other words, when I do this, do I have their best interest in mind? So I don't have to be absolutely certain about this. It just has to be likely the case that if the person came to me, they would transgress less. So according to Reb Shlomo Zalman, I would be able to do this because they're doing less transgressions than if they hadn't been there. But yeah, just one more second. But according to Rav Sternbach, I could only do that. He doesn't suggest the less as opposed to more. He just suggests the long term. Is it possible that by having a Shabbos meal with me and my family, that after a while this person might want to keep Shabbos or keep elements of Shabbos by doing it? If that's the case, then again, I'm allowed to take that long picture, because the problem here it's not this problem. The problem is not the biblical problem of helping somebody do something wrong, because that's only a problem if there's no other way they could do the thing wrong, and that's not the case in any of these. They have many other ways of doing the thing that's wrong, of driving or whatever it is on Shabbos. All I have to be worried about is, do I have this person's best interest in mind? If I'm helping somebody do something wrong, I don't have this person's best interest in mind. But if I can say in the big picture, this is going to lead to a better place, then I could say that I have their best interest in mind. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
So I wanted to just tell you about a situation that they have in Chabad here in Sarasota, where the rabbi is ultra religious.
He's Chabad, yes.
Very, very, I mean, he's very, in his own thing. So the question would be, he would rather have you drive to his synagogue on Shabbos than not come at all. All right, because then he's going to be losing a congregant. So even though he's that super religious, he would let you drive to synagogue on Shabbos, so that you understand, so that the parking lot is open, like Sharon says.
Right. Now, usually, by the way, all Chabad are the same. There's no such thing as Chabad guys that are more or less than each other. It's one of the things about Chabad. They're all the same. So whatever he's relying on, every single Chabad relies on it. And they all have open parking lots. They usually have a sign in the parking lot somewhere asking people not to park there on Shabbos, but it can be a small sign somewhere, and they expect people are going to be driving on Shabbos. It cannot be that the reason that he's having people come drive on Shabbos is simply to help his minyan. That cannot be, because there's no permit for that. Everybody would agree there's no permit for that. The only permit could be, and he has strong reason to believe this, because this is very much a part of the Chabad mission, that by coming to the Chabad, this person is going to be inspired and and on a path where they are going to try to do more Shabbos friendly kind of activities, and less unfriendly kind of activities on Shabbos. And that's why he's relying on exactly what I was telling you. If it wasn't for what I was telling you, he could not do this. And he cannot be doing this just to make sure he has a minyan. He has to, but we already know, because it's by definition what the purpose of the Chabad is to provide a Shabbos experience for anybody, any Jew who wants to have it, and part of hope is that people, by experiencing Shabbos, are going to want to bring Shabbos into their lives, even on their own. So this would fit the big picture thing, which is he's looking out for my best interest, even though he's encouraging me to drive to him on Shabbos. He's still looking out for my best interest because he's going to share a Shabbos experience with me. And it's his hope that by sharing this Shabbos experience with me, I'm going to want to bring Shabbos into my life even on my own. So that's his permit, but otherwise it's not permitted. It would be it would be at least rabbinically prohibited. It could be it's probably rabbinically prohibited, but it's still prohibited, and he wouldn't have the permission to do it. This is his permit. It's one of those two, either the Rav Shlomo Zalman permit or the Rav Sternbach permit, but it's one of those two, because otherwise he would not be able to do it. So that is this is what I wanted to talk about last time when we were talking about it. So let's just read the rest of it. And this negative commandment also includes one who helps another do a sin or enables it. For he brought that person to iniquity and made him stumble with his assistance, such that the blindness came back to seduce the sinner. And he helped him complete his sin or arranged to enable the sin. And from such angles, the sages said about the lender and borrower with interest that both of them transgress. You shall not place a stumbling block before the blind together. So even though we're on both sides of it, I'm the lender, you're the borrower, we're doing it with interest. Each one of us is transgressing lifnei iver, because he's borrowing, I'm lending with interest, which is forbidden. Because I'm lending with interest, he's borrowing, which is forbidden. Both of them are obviously transgressing the prohibition of being involved in a loan with interest, but they're also transgressing this problem of lifnei iver.
Aren't there
Go ahead.
plenty of loan sharks on the street? I don't need this particular loan shark.
Right. So it might be rabbinic. Right. It might be rabbinic. This case, you'd have to. This case would be subject to the same kind of discussion that we had before. That if there's a bunch of loan sharks and he could have easily gone to any of the other loan sharks, then it may not be a biblical infraction of this. It may only be rabbinic. Yes. For each one of them assisted his fellow and set up the other to complete a sin. And there are very many things of this sort about which they said that through them one transgresses. You should not place a stumbling block before the blind. But the simple meaning of the verse is, as we said at first, which is the giving bad advice. Now, here is a fascinating thing. I don't remember who said this. It's an early commentary who made this point. And I forgot who it is. I have it written down somewhere, but I forgot who it is. But this person said that weirdly, if I actually place a stumbling block before the blind and a blind person trips over it, I have not transgressed this transgression. This transgression means giving bad advice or enabling. It does not mean literally putting a stumbling block before the blind. This is an example. Again, it may not be everybody agrees with this, but there is a very, and I just wish it was somebody like one of the commentaries on the Rambam or somebody else, but it's somebody, with a lot of street cred, who made this observation. Again, I'm not saying everybody agrees on it, but this is a possibility that this is often used when you're talking about taking the Torah literally. there are many examples of the fact that we as Jews do not take the Torah literally. One of them is an eye for an eye, which we have say based on the oral law, that doesn't mean you actually blind a person if they cause the blinding of another, but rather they have to compensate them financially for, in other words, if the person lost an eye, you have to compensate him financially to the to the best as you can for that loss of eye, and the same thing for each one of them. So that's one example, and this is another example. Oh, there's another example, which is, it says in the Torah 40 lashes. You're supposed to get 40 lashes, but we say through oral Torah that it's really 39. Also,
Rabbi,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not at. Wait, now I've forgotten what I wanted to say.
I'm sure it was important.
Related to them?
Yeah, it was.
All right, maybe you'll come back.
Yeah, I'm.
All right,
I am.
so okay.
I apologize.
That's all right. That's all right. So this would be another example of that at least according to some, even though the prohibition is you shall not put a stumbling block before the blind, it's possible that if you did put a stumbling block before the blind, you did not transgress this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember what I thought. In
Yeah.
my dim memory,
Yeah.
because this has to do, if you have something that's the shot, and how do you extend it? Now, I thought in the Gemara they went through and they proved that it could not be the shot, and that was the only reason that they were able to give the allegorical meaning to it. Am I right or wrong about that?
About this thing in particular, the stumbling block before the blind?
Yes. That they
I don't know.
Block before. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know for that, because this isn't something that everybody even says. This is just a conclusion that's reached by certain important commentaries. If it was an actual overt Gemara, but I when you say things, I take it seriously. So I will look back at this, but you're right about the 39 and 40. You're right about the eye for an eye.
Yeah, but
You're not necessarily. I don't know. I don't think my I don't think that this is overtly discussed in the Gemara, but I'm not. I'm pretty sure it isn't, but I don't know for sure.
Could be faulty because it was just because of the logic of the situation,
right.
That they felt that they had to undermine the shot before they had license to go further.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think that's the case, but maybe I'm willing. Anytime you say it, I want to investigate it, but I don't think it is here. But anyways, this would be another example of this kind of thing where and I mean Mordechai Becher and I had this discussion on a podcast, one of our earlier ones, that there are many of these, like the I think it's Rav Sadia Gaon, the Rambam, and others. They have almost like a rule or a set of criteria for not understanding something according to the pshat, according to what we would call the pshat, which is let's say the literal understanding of it. And one of them is it's not reasonable. That I think is Rav Sadia Gaon. If it's not reasonable that this is what it means, then you're allowed to say that's not what it means. So for instance, when the Torah says, when Hashem says, I took you out on the wings of eagles, so, or griffin vultures, whatever that word nesher means. But I took you out on the wings of eagles. So nobody I've done this just not scientific survey, but I've done it several times where I just ask people from all different backgrounds if they think that that's literal. I've never had somebody who thought that was literal, but they also have never been directly instructed that it isn't, and they never saw any place that said that that isn't. They never saw any place that said that's not literal. They were never and oftentimes when I ask them, it's the first time they've ever thought about it. I mean, when somebody's asked them, they've thought about it because on their own they've seen that line, but they've never thought about the possibility that that's literal. They just right away knew that that's not literal, that it's poetry. But the question is, how can they do that? How are they allowed to do that? So this is part of that thing, that there are certain criteria. It seems like the Rambam also holds like that, that if something is unreasonable, then you're allowed to say it's metaphor. So this could go to questions about, can a snake talk, or could a donkey talk, or things like that, even though there's a lot of people who want to say that's literal, but the question is, do you have an opening to say it's not literal, because it's just not reasonable that a snake talked. It's not reasonable that a donkey talks. It's not. So am I allowed to say, therefore, that either this is a metaphor or, some kind of a parable, or could I say, like the Rambam says about the donkey talking, that it's a prophecy? That it's in a prophecy, because that can happen in dreams or prophecies otherwise. Okay, so that is that. I'm glad we got an opportunity to talk about this together, and I look forward to doing this again tomorrow at our same bat time, same bat channel at 11 a.m. All right,
Thank you.
be well, and
Sounds
thank you for
terrific. Thank you.
thank you for giving me the introducing me to that podcast. I look forward
I
to
hope you
listening to it.
enjoy it. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sure I will. All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye.